Hi guys, it's Ankita. Welcome to another video. If you're new here, hi, welcome to my channel. I talk about classics, fantasy fiction, and middle grade books on my channel. Today I'm going to talk about the second book in the Lord of the Rings series, that is The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien. I thoroughly enjoyed the first half of the book more than the second half, obviously because the first half of the book has some of my favorite characters, especially Aragorn. And then the second half is more about Frodo and Sam. Although I do like both the characters, I in general enjoy reading about the other characters more than Frodo and Sam. Towards the end of the first book, the Fellowship separates. Gandalf is dead, right? So this book begins with Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli trying to make sense of what has happened to the hobbits, right? Merry and Pippin are captured by the orcs, and Frodo and Sam, they head towards the east with Smeagol or Gollum, one and the same person. I really loved the parts in this book where Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn are trying to make sense of what happened to the hobbits, where they are, they're tracking them, and not only was it funny, but there's so much to learn from these characters. And that's something that I really love about Lord of the Rings. Even though, it's a fantasy fiction, there are so many lessons to learn from these characters. And despite of them being put into difficult situations, they always come out undefeated, and there's always hope on the horizon. That's the best part about reading this story. So when these three are trying to figure out what has happened to the hobbits, I love how they communicate and they respect each other and they work together as a team really well. So I laughed so much when initially Gimli is so averse to riding on a horse, but later on in the story when their horses go missing, right? When their horses run away and they go missing, Gimli is so disappointed that he will have to continue the journey on foot instead of horseback. So that was really funny. And then in the chapter, The White Rider, the trio is trying to make sense of what happened to Merry and Pippin by just looking at the crumbs and the fallen melon leaf. So they're trying to piece together the puzzle as to what happens. And here's something really funny that Legolas says. "Well, here is the strangest riddle that we have yet found," exclaimed Legolas. "A bound prisoner escapes both from the orcs and from the surrounding horsemen." He then stops, while still in the open, and cuts his bonds with an orc knife. But how and why? For if his legs were tied, how did he walk? And if his arms were tied, how did he use the knife? And if neither were tied, why did he cut the cords at all? Being pleased with his skill, he then sat down and quietly ate some whey bread. That at least is enough to show that he was a hobbit, without the melon leaf. After that, I suppose, he turned his arms into wings and flew away singing into the trees. It should be easy to find him. We only need wings ourselves." That was some serious sarcasm from Legolas. That's something that you don't expect from him, but then when it happens, it's really funny. And when Legolas says this, Aragorn actually smiles. Now, if you read the entire Lord of the Rings, how many times actually does Aragorn smile or laugh in the Lord of the Rings? It's rare. Anyway, I had to turn the lights on because it's getting dark outside and I had to read this, so I'm sorry. There's a little bit of glare. I'll try not to look up, but this is the situation. It's late October and it's getting darker. Also, it's cloudy outside, so there's hardly any sunlight. Anyways, I also very much enjoyed the conversation between Legolas and Gimli in the chapter The Road to Isengard, in which Gimli so passionately expresses his love for the caves of Helm's Deep. The same with Legolas. Legolas loves Fangorn just as much as Gimli loves the caves. It was also funny to read about Gimli being terrified of ever going into Fangorn or venturing into Fangorn. That was really funny. I want to read how passionately Gimli describes the caves of the Helm's Deep. So here he says, "And Legolas, when the torches are kindled and men walk on the sandy floors under the echoing domes Ah, then Legolas, gems and crystals and veins of precious ore glint in the polished walls, and the light glows through folded marbles, shell-like, translucent as the living hands of Queen Galadriel. There are columns of white and saffron and dawn rose, Legolas, fluted and twisted into dreamlike forms. They spring up from many colored floors to meet the glistening pendants of the roof. Wings, ropes, curtains, fine as frozen clouds, spears, banners, pinnacles of suspended palaces. Still lakes mirror them. A glimmering world looks up from the dark pools covered with clear glass. Cities, such as the mind of Durin, could scarce have imagined in his sleep, stretch on through avenues and pillared courts, on into the dark recesses where no light can come, and blink, a silver drop falls, and the round wrinkles in the glass make all the towers bend and waver like weeds and corals in a grotto of the sea. Then evening comes, they fade and twinkle out. The torches pass on into another chamber and another dream. There is chamber after chamber, Legolas, hall opening out of hall, dome after dome, stair beyond stair, and still the winding paths lead on into the mountain's heart. Caves, the caverns of Helm's Deep. Happy was the chance that drove me there. It makes me weep to leave them. Oh, it's beautiful. You can tell how much he loves caves. And in that same chapter, The Road to Isengard, I also love the part where Company Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and Gandalf, along with King Theoden, they finally meet Merry and Pippin, and they find both of them relaxing, resting, smoking pipe. And then it's really funny how Gimli reacts to them. And I want to read this one paragraph. You rascals, you woolly-footed and wool-pated truants, a fine hunt you have led us, 200 leagues through fen and forest, battle and death, to rescue you. And here we find you feasting and idling and smoking. Where did you come by the weed, you villains? Hammer and tongs. I'm so torn between rage and joy that if I do not burst, it will be a marvel. All right, let's talk about the Ents. Aren't they the most amazing creatures in this book? I love when Treebeard comes across Merry and Pippin, or Merry and Pippin come across Treebeard, and Treebeard has absolutely no idea who they are or what species they are. And he sings this, he says that they are nowhere on the long list. And so in the chapter Treebeard, he tells them the lore of the living creatures. Now the lore of living creatures. First name the four, the free peoples. Eldest of all the elf children, dwarf the delver. Dark are his houses. Ent the earthborn, old as mountains. Man the mortal, master of horses. Later on after the Battle of the Helm's Deep, in the chapter The Voice of Saruman, Treebeard adds the hobbits to the long list, and this is how he modifies the long list. Ents the earthborn, old as mountains, the wide walkers, water drinking, and hungry as hunters, the hobbit children, the laughing folk, the little people. Oh, also, let's talk about the Entwise. When Merry and Pippin describe the Shire to Treebeard, Treebeard then inquires if the Entwives live there. And I thought the entire, whenever Treebeard would bring up the Entwives, his voice would become so brooding, and you could almost sense that he does miss the Entwives a lot. I don't know, do the Entwives ever appear in any other series? I know they don't appear in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Do they appear in The Hobbit? I am not sure. If you know, please do let me know in the comments down below, because I do want the Ents to find the Entwives. I also love how Tolkien has created such well-rounded characters. Obviously, the main characters, Gandalf, the four hobbits, and the company, everyone in the company. They are honestly well-rounded, but other than that, Treebeard, or another good example is Quickbeam, the other ant that Merry and Pippin come across. So in the chapter Treebeard, here's the description of Quickbeam that I really liked, and that kind of made Quickbeam so unique and wonderful at the same time. So here it is. All that day they walked about in the woods with him, singing and laughing. For Quickbeam often laughed. He laughed if the sun came out from behind a cloud. He laughed if they came upon a stream or spring. Then he stooped and splashed his feet and head with water. He laughed sometimes at some sound or whisper in the trees. Whenever he saw a roving tree, he halted a while, with his arms stretched out, and sang, and swayed as he sang. Isn't he wonderful? I think he truly is. I also love the conversation between Gandalf and Pippin and how it shows the Hobbit's inquisitive nature. That was quite interesting to learn about Palantir. And the second half of the book focuses on the journey of Sam, Frodo, and Smeagol. Smeagol has such a split personality, him and Gollum. So I'm reading this book with my friend, and she brought up a very good question as to what do you think is the role of Smeagol? Like, why do you think Tolkien introduced this character in the story? And we both think that it's because he's kind of a representation of what would happen if Frodo failed in his task. Like, if Frodo was to keep the ring to himself, then he would turn exactly like Smeagol or Gollum. So that's what we think, but I want to know, like, what are your thoughts? Why do you think Tolkien introduced this character of Smeagol or Gollum, other than Smeagol being someone who takes them to the east? Other than that, what could possibly be the reason for Tolkien to introduce this character in this trilogy? It's interesting how Sam is always suspicious of Smeagol/Gollum, whereas Frodo chooses to trust Smeagol. I found a thing that's very problematic in the Lord of the Rings series, in this trilogy, is that all the good men are pale and have golden hair, blue eyes, whereas those who are siding with the Dark Lord, they either have black or brown skin. And also the orcs have slanted eyes. I noticed this in the chapter The Black Gate is Closed, and I think also in the Urkhai chapter. I might be saying this wrong, but in that same chapter, I do love the description of Oliphants. They are like elephants, but Tolkien decided to make them into Oliphants, and the description is so fun. In case you're wondering in which chapter it is, it's in The Black Gate is Closed. And the last thing that I want to read to you from this book is from the chapter The Stairs of Cirith Ungol. And in that, Sam wonders, Sam is talking to Frodo about tales, and this is what he says. Still, I wonder if we shall ever be put into songs or tales. We are in one, of course, but I mean put into words, told by the fireside or read out of a great big book with red and black letters, years and years afterwards. And people will say, let's hear about Frodo and the ring. And they'll say, yes, that's one of my favorite stories. Frodo was very brave, wasn't he, Dad? Yes, my boy, the famousest of the hobbits. And that's saying a lot. And look, now after so many years, everyone knows the story of Frodo and Samwise Gamgee, and I wonder, when Tolkien wrote about this, did he think that would actually happen? I hope he did, because he did work really hard on this. I love how strong the world building is in this, like the backstory to everything, to the story of the men, to that of the elves and the hobbits, everything, and also the ants. So the backstory is so strong, and it must have been really difficult to write an epic fantasy back then in the early or mid 20th century, because there were no computers back then. So Tolkien truly was a genius, probably a racist genius, I don't know. But if you look past the racist stuff, and you don't have to, because it might bother you that, that all black and brown skinned people are evil in the book, and that might bother you, and that should bother everyone. But if you look past it, this is also a story of hope. It's a story of friendship. It's a story of doing something for the greater good. And that's why I love this story. The language is beautiful. All the descriptions, they are stunning, and it's actually one of the most easiest classics to read out there. Okay, it is long, so you might want to read it with someone to keep you motivated, but it is truly a beautiful, beautiful story. So these were just a few things of the many things that I liked about this book. If you have read this book, do let me know what you liked about it, and who's your favorite character in the book and why. Do let me know in the comments down below. I love reading your comments, and thank you so much for watching this video. If you have not already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button down below. And as always, don't forget to like and share this video with your friends and family, and I'll see you next time. Until then, au revoir.